Welcome back to the Next Gen Prophets podcast. I'm your host, your pastor, Jessica Toach. Whoa, guys, it has been a full and crazy week. Just these last couple of days, we have been having such heavy rainstorms here in Rosarito, Mexico. In fact, me and my husband, Pastor Austin, we were just working on our church and working to make sure that it was all padded up and weatherproof for the heavy storms that hit. And oh my goodness, did those rainstorms hit. The roads were flooded. There were sections cut off of the roads and flooded and that fell in, and there was electricity poles that fell over. But thankfully, those rainy days are behind us, and we are ready to get back to work on what God has called us to do, and that is to make disciples of all the nations. Now, prophets, as Michael and Deborah were sharing yesterday on beginning this journey of mentorship, I'm sure that you asked the same question I did when I first started to want to step out and become a mentor. And it was this one thing. When am I ready to become a mentor? When am I ready to mentor somebody? Because we have all these dreams and ambitions of imparting and helping and coaching somebody. But then there comes the truth of, am I ready for this? How do I know I'm ready to mentor somebody? When's there a good time? Do you just get a heavenly word saying, "Thus saith the Lord, it is time for you to take on a disciple"? Well, I want to share with you a little bit about my daughter, Natasha, okay? Bear with me. I got to point to this story. Natasha actually just turned 2 years old just last week, and this little bundle of joy who is hitting her terrible twos is copying everything that me and my husband say, and actually more adorably, she copies David, Deborah and Michael's eldest son, in everything he does. If he's gonna ride the bike, she's gonna ride the bike just like him. If David's gonna throw the toy, Natasha's gonna throw the toy. If David is going to hit somebody with a teddy bear, you can sure bet that Natasha will be following up with the next backhand with the teddy bear in hand. And already at the ages of 2, do we see a mentorship relationship form? Now, this is not necessarily a good mentorship relationship, and mommy and daddy on both sides have a lot of retraining to do. But in this moment, we see how God organically put the desire and the ability to mentor inside each and every one of us. God has called you to mentor. I'm going to say this again. God has called you to become a mentor. Whether you feel like it or not, whether you believe it or not, it's a part of who we are. God called us to multiply. It's a part of our DNA. Just even look at how we've been built physically. We were born and bred to reproduce, to take who we are, our DNA, our culture, our mindsets, everything that makes us us, and to duplicate another life. And just in the same way, naturally, do we see this process. It also applies in your spiritual life. And today I need you to realize that today, you heard me, today you are ready to become a mentor. But before you go running out there and trying to figure it out all on your own, I want to help you and give you the steps that I wish I had when I was first stepping out in mentorship. Because when you begin stepping out, you often feel very insecure. And you're like, is what I'm teaching even, of value? Where do I even begin? Where do I start? Well, let's begin with this one simple thing. What is in you that you can duplicate in somebody else? Because God put a very specific gift and talent in you that you need to take and multiply in others. And I want us to look at 1 Timothy 4 verses 15 to 16. Now, I'm a pastor teacher, so I broke the podcasting rule and I did 2 verses instead of 1. You'll just have to bear with me, prophets. But listen to this. Meditate on these things. Give yourself entirely to them being the gifts God has given us in the Spirit. That your progress may be evident to all. Take heed to yourself, to the doctrine. Continue in them, for in doing this, you will save both yourself and those who hear you. Now, did you catch that part right there in the middle? So first off, it's telling us that we need to pay attention to these things. We need to pay attention to the gifts that God has given us. We need to meditate on them. Are you taking time to really focus, to develop, and to mentally comprehend the things that God has given you? The gifts, the skills, the talents, the things that make you you. Are you focusing on them? Because here in the first part, it says to give yourself entirely to them. Keep them in mind and do it. Just be everything that you're meant to be. But then it says, so that your progress may be evident to all. In other words, everybody's got to see it. It's not good enough for you just to know what God has called you to do, but everyone around you must see it. If you want to become a mentor, you first need to take the skill and talent that God has given you and put it out there. Go put it out there for other people to see. Can other people track your progress? Can other people see the evidence of the journey and the skills that God has imparted to you? Are other people noticing you? Because this is really where you begin to see if you're ready to become that mentor. Are people looking to you? Are people looking up to you? I mean, just even look at Natasha and David. Natasha loves David. She idolizes him. She follows him everywhere he goes. And no matter what he does, she's going to do it too because she looks up to him. Are people looking up to you? Are people noticing you? Because when they do, you have a point of contact where others are connecting on the gifts and skills inside of you and are ready to go further. After that, it says, take heed to yourself and to the doctrine. Now, I love this. And I'm going to say something that all the Gen Zers are going to cringe at and probably roll their eyes at. But are you comparing yourself to others? Now, before you think that you need to become like everybody else, it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this. Are you taking a moment to evaluate yourself, your skills, and compare it to the skill set of others? Because when we take our skill sets and we compare it to others, we see how mature or immature or skilled or not skilled we are. You see, the problem I see a lot of times when others want to step out and share and impart their skill sets to others is they haven't taken a moment to properly assess their skill set. They'll say, I'm going to mentor you in preaching, but they are a terrible preacher. But on the other hand, they are an excellent writer, and they can write and portray their words in such eloquence. But they never took a moment to see and compare their skill set to other preachers. So they just feel anointed. They feel that this is the best thing they have, and they just go out and try and teach others to preach. And it is horrible. Just don't do that. But when we take a moment to really compare ourselves and say, God, is this something that actually is worthy to teach to somebody else? Can you compare yourself, compare your skill sets to others so that you know if you have something to teach? If they already know what you know, maybe it's not a good idea to mentor them in that one thing. But if you have a skill set and a knowledge that surpasses the people around you's knowledge, or the person that is looking up to you, if your knowledge surpasses them, then you have something to instruct and build into them. So take a moment to compare what you know to the people around you, to other people in your field. I remember the first time that I compared my graphic skills to somebody that was on another ministry that was their graphics designer, and they were part of a pretty big name ministry, and I'm not going to mention where. But I compared myself to that graphics designer, not in a arrogant or in a haughty way, but just in a, okay, so if I'm going to learn from you, what do I have to learn from you? Where can you teach me? Where do you surpass me? Where do I surpass you? Where are we in this? And I looked at him and I realized in many different fields that I could stand shoulder to shoulder and in some areas even surpass him. And I was really, really shocked because all my life I had this mentality of, I wasn't as good as everybody else. I just do this. I'm just anointed to do this. I'm not professional. I'm not all this. I just like to design graphics and no one else is going to do it, so I'm going to do it. But in that moment, I realized it was more than just, well, somebody's got to do it, to this is something God anointed me for. This is something I'm good at. God has trained me in this and I can take this up to the next level. So now at the moment, I've helped work with a lot of our team to teach them at least some of the basics of graphics design, and even working with my little brother Michael to teach him how to do graphics design. And in that moment of recognizing my skill, I could take that and impart that to others. And I need you to take a moment to recognize your skill set too. Where are you better? Where are your skill sets advanced than other people in your field? Take a moment. If you are called to be a preacher, how are you a better preacher than the guy next to you or the guy next to your other church? Again, this is not so that you can judge them, but that you can judge your skill set and judge yourself in a way that will build and edify you and those around you, okay? So I just had to put that out there. And then finally, take what you know, take everything that's inside of you and build it up. Pour it out on other people. Don't just, hey, I'm good at this. Good. Now go and find somebody to make them as good as you, because that's the point of a mentor. Is our goal and focus is not just to hold all the skills and talents to ourselves, but to take it on to the next level. So to just recap on the points and the guides to being that mentor, knowing that you're ready to mentor in confidence, is number 1, take a moment to focus on the things God has given you. Next, give yourself entirely to them. Do it. Just invest your whole heart and do it every day until it's a part of you. Then get out in the open. Compare your skill sets to those around you. How good are you? Really take a moment to focus in and be honest about, I'm good at this, I'm terrible at that, I need to work on this, but actually, this is where I'm good at. Good. And then once you have that, finally, find somebody to invest, to pour into them and make your skill set their skill set. And this doesn't have to be spiritual. I mean, if you want to take the spiritual route, by all means, you can do that. I mean, I do that all the time in my Fivefold Ministry campus where I invest into other pastor teachers. Yes, for those pastor teachers moonlighting on this prophetic podcast, what are you doing here? Yeah, I go and I mentor pastors and teachers in my Fivefold Ministry campus. I use these same rules of mentorship to spiritually mentor them into their office, but I also use it in my graphics design to mentor Michael, to mentor other team members, to help them get better at the calling and the profession that God called them to walk into. So yeah, use this in both. In fact, if you can, invest somewhere spiritually and invest somewhere naturally. Just be a mentor and take what is in you and duplicate yourself as the way God designed you to do. Get out in the crowd. Get yourself out there, and I know you're going to bless God's people. So, if you need some more impartation, if you need some more practical how-tos on how to mentor, how to call somebody to mentor, how to call somebody to mentorship, how to pick a track for them, and all those little details, don't worry. Go to myprophetictribe.com and connect with Deborah and Michael Feldhazen. They'll be able to help train and impart to you and get you ready for this next stage in your life. So until then, I will see you next week, and you have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye for now, guys.